There has been plenty going on in the world of boxing of late, as Dennis Hogan was finally crowned world champion after a painstaking journey to the top. There was also an embarrassing moment for one particular Aussie boxer who celebrated victory too early before his opponent had his hand raised. Today, we are discussing both stories, plus other bits and pieces from around the world of boxing, so don't go anywhere. First up, we are discussing Dennis Hogan. Stay tuned. It's safe to say that Irish boxer Dennis Hogan has had a hard road to the top. Having previously challenged 3 times for world titles in 2 different weight classes, Hogan shocked the world against England's Sam Eggington last weekend to win the IBO light middleweight title. The 37-year-old Irishman looked as though his career was winding down just last year, as he lost his 3rd fight in a row after being stopped by Tim Tszyu. But he has come roaring back into form with 3 wins in a row, bagging his maiden world title in the process. The main event of the evening in Newcastle, England, saw Hogan and Eggington go back and forth for 12 rounds in what was a scrappy affair. The fight was extremely close, and even though one judge scored it as a draw, the other 2 scored 116 to 112 in favor of the newly crowned champion Hogan. The Irishman relocated to Australia many years ago and currently fights out of Brisbane, meaning he is an Australian citizen, so technically Aussies can now claim yet another world championship in combat sports. Hogan has explained that he views himself as both Australian and Irish, but revealed that his daughters are Aussie. He said, "I absolutely love Australia. It's given me this opportunity. It's paved the way for me," before adding he initially came for a year, but stayed because he loved the place so much. What do you make of this world championship win? So what else did Hogan have to say? Let's see. Well, as we know, his path to a world title was a long one, having come up short on no fewer than 3 occasions, all of which have been relatively recent. He lost a majority decision to Jamie Munguia in April 2019, which was for the WBO light middleweight title, before moving up to middleweight, where he was defeated by Jermall Charlo for the WBC crown. No shame in that, by the way. He then took on Tim Tszyu last year, where he was stopped in the 5th round, but has since suggested that it was his destiny to win a world title. Hogan said that he has felt like a world champion for some time, but as he heard the 114 to 114 score read out, he admitted to a bit of panic setting in. Of course, many people acknowledged that he had done enough to win during the fight, but as the saying goes, you should never leave it in the hands of the judges. He then revealed that his corner told him he needed to win the final 2 rounds, so he went out and made sure he did, before going on to add that he was over the moon. Admitting to it being a bit of a weird feeling, he did reveal that he knew he had won deep down, but because no one was jumping around in celebration, he had to double check if he actually had. A great performance and a well-deserved belt. Bravo, Dennis. Next up, we're talking about Mark Lucas. There was a painfully awkward moment on the undercard of the Hogan vs. Eggington fight in the UK last weekend, as light heavyweights Mark Lucas and Jade Mitchell went to war. Both Aussies slugged it out over the 6 rounds, and in fairness, it was an incredibly close fight. As the ring announcer revealed that the winner came from the blue corner, Lucas threw up his hands in celebration, but came to the rapid realization that he was actually fighting out of the red corner. Of course, Lucas can be forgiven for thinking he might have won, considering how tight the scorecards were, but as he realized he had made a mistake, he quickly flashed an embarrassed grin towards his opponent, Mitchell. One judge had scored the fight a draw, but the other 2 had judged Mitchell to have won with scores of 58 to 56 and 59 to 55, and plenty of people had suggested before the fight that this one could be one of the best fights on the card, and it did not disappoint. The pair goaded each other throughout, and each time one missed with a big shot, the other would make a gesture to let their opponent know just how much they had missed. But when they did come together, the fight was full of fantastic tussles. Did you guys see this one? Who did you have as the winner? Let us know below. We're discussing yet another boxer from the Tszyu production line now. Stay tuned. Of course, the name Tszyu is synonymous with Australian boxing, with Kostya having held it down in the 90s and 2000s as world champion. Of course, the mantle was then passed to son Tim, who has gone on to win plenty of regional titles and is also tipped for world glory. He goes up against Jermall Charlo in January. However, there is yet another Tsu emerging, as Tim's brother Nikita was also recently out on the Hogan and Eggington card, putting on a superb performance for Aussie boxing fans. The younger Tsu put on a boxing clinic to outclass fellow Aussie Darkon Dryden over the first 3 rounds of their scrap, with the latter refusing to come out for the 4th. In the build-up to the fight, Kostia's youngest claimed he would bring a more tactical approach before suggesting he would have Dryden out of there before the final bell, and he did not disappoint. Nikita made Dryden miss before landing some big shots of his own, and the Newcastle crowd would wince as Tsu laid siege to the body of his opponent, who was largely outclassed. Tsu showed some excellent footwork to get in and out quickly, and inflicted as much damage as possible without being hit himself, and this would break down Dryden both physically and mentally. One commentator referred to the performance as brutal, and we would certainly agree with that. Are you guys excited about the emergence of another Tsu? And now, a look ahead to Haney vs. Kambosos Jr. this weekend. George Kambosos Jr. seeks redemption this weekend as he comes up against recent tormentor Devin Haney. Of course, the American stripped Kambosos of his world titles back in June, which has seen the Aussie head back to basics. In the lead up to the fight this week, George's promoter, the legendary Lou DiBella, has been discussing the rematch, suggesting that Kambosos' performance in the first fight was disappointing. However, with a change of attitude from the Aussie and his decision to shun the limelight, having fallen into the trappings that come along with becoming a world champion following the Lopez win, DiBella believes that George is much better prepared for this fight. DiBella, who has also represented former world champions Jermaine Taylor and Bernard Hopkins in the past, also explained how it was much different for boxers than it is for athletes from other sports, saying if a rugby, football, or baseball player has an off night, they have other games, and that one performance doesn't matter very much, before saying that in boxing, with one bad night, you go from undisputed champion to contender. Of course, he's right, but all boxers know this from a very young age, and it's just good to see Kambosos Jr. seemingly more focused coming into this one. DiBella finished by adding, he is going to do everything in his power to win. If he doesn't win, I believe he's going to go out on his shield. What do you guys think of Lou's words? And finally, we're talking about Jason Maloney. Stay with us. Another Aussie will be out on the undercard of Haney vs. Kambosos 2 in the shape of one Jason Maloney. The bantamweight goes up against Nawapan Kaikana in a WBC title eliminator, and he will also be sharing the card with his brother Andrew, who is up against Norberto Jimenez. Two of the best bantamweights in the world will collide as Maloney and Kaikana do battle, and Mayhem has given his thoughts about the fight earlier this month. With the winner likely fighting for the WBC title next time out, Maloney said, "I can't wait to get back in there in Melbourne, alongside my brother on one of the biggest shows of the year." He then explained how training has been brilliant in the build-up to the fight, before suggesting that fighting at home in Australia is going to give him an added incentive to win. Revealing that he couldn't be more up for this, he said that both he and his brother Andrew are looking to put on solid performances, and we wish him the best of luck. Do you guys think both Maloney brothers can get the job done? As usual, thanks for dropping in on us today, and remember to tune in again next time when we will be discussing all sorts of other fun bits and pieces. And don't forget to do us a solid by liking and sharing today's video with any boxing heads you know of. Bye guys!